Hazel Rae. When she was born, she had her second toe was longer than her big toe, which is like her mom, and her pinkies, when you put them up next to each other, were kind of bent out away from each other, and that is like her dad.
Welcome to Still a Part of Us, a place where moms and dads share the story of their child who was stillborn or who died in infancy. I'm Winter.
And I'm Lee. We are grateful you joined us today. Please note that this is a story of loss and has triggers.
Thanks to our lost parents who are willing to be vulnerable and share their children with us.
If you're listening to this podcast, just know that on our YouTube channel there are pictures and videos that are related to the stories that are being shared.
Subscribe and share it with a friend that might need it, and tell them to subscribe. Why? Because people need to know that even though our babies are no longer with us, they're still a part of us. Taylor, thank you so much for coming on today to talk about Hazel. We are so happy that you're here, and obviously sorry that you have lost your little girl, but we're so grateful that you're here, and welcome to the podcast and our channel.
Thank you.
Before we get started, can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do on a day-to-day basis, and what area are you guys located in?
So we live in Kansas, and kind of like almost the middle of Kansas. And I am a nurse, and I work in addictions nursing.
Wow, that's a really different area of nursing that you rarely meet somebody in that area. So do you enjoy your work?
I really do. I've done addictions nursing ever since I graduated, and I've done inpatient treatment, outpatient office, and now I'm working in a hospital setting with it. So I enjoy it very much.
That's great. And you've been practicing in that area for how many years?
I graduated December of 2016, so about 5 years now
Yeah. That's
going
great.
on. Yeah.
You're getting some good practice there. That's awesome.
Yes.
And tell me a little bit about your family, what your family looks like right now. Like, I guess who you're married to and.
Okay. So I am married to my husband, Tad. We have been married since 2017. So in September, it'll be 4 years. We do not have any living children, but we do have a dog, and her name is May, and we
Oh,
love her very much.
that's awesome. And what do you guys like to do in your spare time besides working? What do you like to do in your spare time?
We really like to go on road trips, just random road trips to anywhere. We've gone to like the shoe tree, which is just a tree out in the middle of nowhere, Kansas, and everybody throws their shoes on it. So it's full of shoes.
That's awesome. So just any old road trip, you're like, let's just go for the weekend or just a
Yeah.
day trip or whatever.
Yeah.
That is great and awesome. Now I need to go see the shoe tree, I think.
It's pretty neat.
And we're talking like hundreds of pairs of shoes, I'm assuming.
Oh yeah.
That's so funny. Well, that's pretty great. And were you guys living in Kansas at the time of Hazel's birth?
Yes.
Okay. And as a little bit of background, how long ago was Hazel's birth at the time of this recording?
So it's April 21st now, 2021, and Hazel was born on May 19th, 2020.
So
We're coming up on a year.
Yeah, we're just shy of a year. Okay. So tell me about your pregnancy. Was that something that you guys planned, or was that a surprise? Did you have any issues with fertility?
I can't actually remember when we found out we were pregnant for the first time. I really can't remember what month it actually was, but that pregnancy, we didn't have any trouble getting pregnant really. We just decided we wouldn't prevent in any way, and then it kind of just happened. And that pregnancy made it somewhere between 6 and 8 weeks. And then we found out that we were having a miscarriage. And that was mid-May when we did have the miscarriage. And then in I believe it was in September, we found out that we were pregnant again. We weren't necessarily trying. We were just saying whatever happens, happens.
Mm-hmm.
And it happened. And so then we were expecting Hazel.
Mm-hmm.
And after we had Hazel in May, we had another early miscarriage. We after we lost Hazel, we definitely weren't trying, but we weren't preventing too well at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And in September, we were pregnant for about 4 weeks, and lost that baby. And then we actually found out we were pregnant in October, and
Oh.
we are currently pregnant now with that
Oh.
baby.
Yeah. You've had 3 miscarriages, is that right?
So yeah, a miscarriage, Hazel's stillbirth, and then another
Oh,
miscarriage.
okay, so 2 miscarriages. How did that first miscarriage, was that devastating also? I just am not sure. Some people are very familiar with miscarriage also, or have people that have had miscarriages in their families, and that may be something that's a little bit more on their radar. But um,
Yeah, I definitely wasn't expecting it. My mom and my husband's mom never had, and I don't think I knew anybody at the time that had.
mhm,
Um, Obviously, heard that it could happen, but I never thought that it would happen to us. And from the moment we found out, we were so in love and excited. And um, so it was hard, really hard when we lost that baby. And then when we got pregnant with Hazel, it was really hard to connect to her because I mean, I don't know about Tad, but for me, I was so worried that I would lose that one too.
yeah,
And so I really didn't start connecting with her until definitely past 12 weeks, because that's supposed to be the safe point.
right.
Um, I was still concerned from weeks like 12 to 24, but at 24 weeks, I was like, we've hit viability and everything's going to be fine. And every week I would look up, oh, this is how developed her lungs are now. This is her chance of survival now. Like, and every week it just got better and better.
Hmm.
And at 36 weeks, I was like, there's nothing standing in our way. Like, she can be born any day now and she'll be just fine. But I never expected she wouldn't be born alive.
Yeah. Let's talk about your pregnancy with Hazel. So how did you feel? How did you look? How did she look? How did the pregnancy go for you?
So the pregnancy went really well. I carry kind of small, and so I didn't get that big. I wasn't miserable. I was pretty mobile the whole time, and I really like enjoyed feeling her kicks. And I mean, the whole pregnancy was just it was kind of a breeze. I mean, they, labeled me the normal boring pregnancy. I don't have any risk factors. I didn't have any complications
Hmm.
whatsoever. Everything was perfect according to them,
Hmm.
and I mean it was. So when at 36 weeks, and it was 36 weeks in some days, like 3 or 4.
Hmm.
Um
Oh, can I
I
ask you a question really fast before you go to
uh-huh.
36 weeks? So, did you guys go have your scan at 20 weeks, around 20 weeks to,
Yep.
and and she looked good there and no issues
Mhm.
that were of concern?
Yeah, she actually, being a nurse, I always read the reports and everything.
Mhm, mhm.
And I probably know more than I should, but less than I need to. And so I read her reports, and at 20 weeks, she was right on everything.
Everything.
20 weeks along, no concerns whatsoever in the report. It was a perfect ultrasound.
And did you guys, want to know if it was a boy or a girl?
Yeah, we did. And we actually did the testing that you can do, the early testing.
Oh, okay.
So we found out at about probably around 12 weeks that she was a girl.
That's great. Were you guys excited? I don't know. Some
Yeah.
people are like, "Oh, I really wanted a boy," or "I really wanted a girl."
Yeah, I was kind of hoping for a girl, and actually I think Tad was too because he's always been more the guy to be a girl dad. So
That's awesome. So everything was going along okay, and, if I'm not mistaken, the shutdown because of the COVID-19 pandemic kind of happened about, kind of towards about 6 months of your pregnancy, is that correct?
yeah, so not a whole lot changed,
Mhm,
but I think maybe more towards the end of the pregnancy where most people would be getting seen like every week or maybe every other week or
mhm,
something like that. They didn't see me that often because I didn't have anything going on
mhm.
and everything was going fine. So it wasn't until my 36-week appointment that they told me, I think, that I was going to go to weekly
Oh,
appointments.
okay. And were those in person or were they doing it like telemedicine?
It was always in person.
Okay, okay, that's great.
Yeah, it was kind of COVID here wasn't as strict as it was in some other places, that's for sure.
Mhm,
Like, they always allowed one visitor. So if Tad wanted to come to any of the appointments, he was allowed.
that's great. So, when you got to 36 weeks, tell me what happened at that time.
So at that time, I was working a job Tuesday through Friday. So I had Mondays off. We had gone through the weekend and it was Monday, and I had my 36-week appointment that morning. So I went in. Um, it was about 10 a.m. when I finally got into the room and got seen. They did heart tones like they always do, and it was fine. I think normally she ran close to like 150,
Mm,
but that day she was like 136 or something like that, which wasn't abnormal. It's still definitely within range. But they said everything was fine. It was just a normal appointment. I had always been like kind of concerned about movements just because I hadn't recognized this magic pattern that they say the babies have.
mhm.
And I told my OB that I just some days she's more active than other days, and they said as long as there's 10 kicks in an hour, um, she's just fine and everything looks good. So then I went home. Um, I remember my mom and I ran some errands. Tad was working because it was a Monday and he was not off. And then it was 3 o'clock. I laid down on our futon in the office to take a nap while Tad was working. And I remember her like really moving a lot then.
Mm.
So I was like, I can rest easy because she's definitely got her 10 movements in this hour.
Uh-huh.
So I took a nap. Um, then after I got up, we went over to my parents' house for supper, and I was like a little, I thought it was kind of a slow day for her moving.
Mhm.
Um, but I had just felt her move a lot at 3, and then I was like, I know religiously after supper she always has the hiccups
Oh,
every day.
really?
Like, yes, right after supper, hiccups. So I ate supper and she had her hiccups. And so I was like, okay, she's still okay in there as far as I know.
Mhm.
But I know that hiccups don't count as movement. So let me go ahead and pay attention still, and make sure she actually moves
Yeah.
rather than just hiccups. And then when we got home, I was busy organizing a bunch of stuff because we were trying to do that to get ready for her.
Mhm.
And by 8 o'clock, I was like, okay, I don't know if I've really felt her, but I've been really busy and active. So it could be that I just haven't noticed.
Mhm.
So I laid down on the couch on my left side and I was like, I'm going to take an hour and I'm going to really pay attention. And she wasn't doing anything. So I drank some cold water and I ate an orange and I laid down. I still didn't feel like I felt anything. And so then it was 9 o'clock, and I was like, okay, it's been an hour. I don't think I felt anything. I wasn't freaking out, but I was like, I'll call the on call and see what they want to do. And I called the on call, and she wasn't worried either. But she's like, yeah, go ahead and go up to the hospital, and they'll hook you up to the monitor, and we'll check it out. So we headed up to the ER, and thank goodness they let Tad stay with me.
Mm-hmm.
They took us up, since we were 36 weeks, they took us up to the labor and delivery. The nurse tried to find her with the Doppler, her heartbeat, and she wasn't finding it. I was getting a little bit worried and anxious, and she was just really fishing around for this heartbeat, and then she thought that she found it because it was 140. And I said, that's not the baby's heartbeat, that's mine. And because I could feel it
Mm-hmm.
in my chest. And so she's like, no, I really think that's baby. And I was like, no, I promise you it's mine. And so once she figured out that it was mine, because she felt my pulse on my wrist, she said, well, I'm going to go get the ultrasound machine. And so she goes and gets that and comes in, and she looks again, and she's not finding anything. And at this point, I'm like having a panic attack. And she said, well, I'm not, an expert at this. And the doctor was in a C-section. So we had to wait for her to get out. Then the doctor finally comes in and takes the ultrasound and puts it on my belly. And is just sitting there, and she's staring at the screen. We're all staring at the screen, and nothing's moving. And she's not saying anything. And I'm like, I don't know what I said. It's like, she's gone, isn't she? She's dead, isn't she? She doesn't have a heartbeat, does she? I'm just freaking out. And she didn't even say anything except for, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. And so finally, she left the room, and I didn't even have tears, but the sound I made was like this wail. And I'm a really shy person, and I don't make loud noises, but I just wailed and grabbed Tad and was like shaking him. And I was like, why? Why us? Why her? And he was like in shock. Neither one of us had any tears to cry. So once we somewhat pulled it together, then at this point we were like numb. We called our parents, and it was like 11 o'clock at night by this time, and just totally numb said, like, we're at the hospital and Hazel died. And our moms wailed, and our sister-in-law, and we said we don't know what the plan is right now, but his parents were in Tulsa, and so we told them they could come up if they wanted to, but we didn't know what was going to happen. Called our jobs, and well, I don't think we called them, but we sent them messages and told them that we wouldn't be in the next day. So then the doctor came back in, and she asked us what we wanted to do. She said we could go home and let things happen naturally, or we could stay and she could induce us. And before that, I forgot to mention, like, when she first, when I was saying that, she's dead, isn't she, and all that stuff, and she was just saying, I'm sorry. I didn't say it out loud because I know better, but my mind was like, we'll cut her out, get her out and shock her and bring her back, But then when the doctor came back in and was talking to us about options and it wasn't going to be a C-section, I was like, so this happened and now I have to do birth? Like, really? That seems not cool.
So unfair.
Um, yeah. And I understand, the preference of doing a natural birth versus a C-section, as far as the recovery and everything. But I didn't think I would actually have to give birth at this point. But I did have to. So uh they started we got into like a delivery room and they started me off with like the cytotech to get the cervix ready. And that was taking forever. And because I think they could only give it every 6 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And the doctor came in to check on us and she's like, is there anything, that I can do for you? And I was like, if you can make this happen faster, like there's nothing worse than that. I don't know. To me, there's nothing worse than the feeling of your deceased baby inside of you. Like I just wanted her out. Not that, I had anything against her by any means. I just didn't feel right that she was still in there.
Yeah.
And so I was like, please, just make this happen faster. And so she broke my water and then started Pitocin. And then, that night, then finally, like, once everything was getting started and it was super late at this point, I don't think Chad and I, like, slept at all. We were still in shock. We finally created tears, so both of us were bawling all night. And then the next day, at some point, I think in the morning, our family started to come, and the nurses were so great, and everybody at the hospital was so great. They were like, whoever you want, and it was COVID, but they're like, really, like if anybody downstairs at the ER, tell them to come through the ER and tell them who they're here for, and we'll let them come up. And so, not all at once, but I think first my parents came. And it was nice to see people before she was born. That way, everybody could get the tears out and we could all talk about it before she was here so that when she was here, it could be more of bonding and, enjoying the time that we had with her rather than like that fresh grief that everybody needed to have. So after my parents, then his parents came up and my brother came with my parents and I only have one brother. And then his parents came up with his brother and his brother's wife. And we all spent quite a bit of time together. I did get an epidural at some point in there. I was going through so much emotional pain. I wasn't even trying to withstand physical pain at that point. I didn't know that when you request the epidural that they may be putting one in someone else and then take a long time to get to you. So that was fun. I had back labor. Didn't feel contractions in the front at all in the back. I thought for sure I was like halfway there and that's why it hurt so bad, but I was definitely only 2 centimeters. So I was a little bit of a weenie, but I think I'm allowed.
Yeah, you're totally allowed.
So they finally come in and they start my epidural, and the anesthesiologist, I tell her, this is all in my back. Like, I don't feel it in my stomach at all. And she's like, oh, well, epidurals don't help with back labor. And I was like, well, then I guess I'm going to die because this is not cool. And so I was really concerned when she walked out of the room, but the nurse looked at me and she said, it's going to work for your back labor. Don't listen to her. So thankfully it kicked in and I didn't die.
Good.
um, and so that made it a lot easier for me to relax. And actually, they did all that in the morning, and then none of the visitors came till after the epidural, which was really nice because then I could be much more conversational than
Right.
I was then. And they kept checking me, and it seems like it took forever. But like, let's see, probably at about 5:45, 6 o'clock, they were like saying that I was getting really close. Everybody had left by this time. Um, and so they they said that I was at a 9 forever, and they're like, well, maybe you can push past it. And so they're like, okay, give us a push, at this next contraction. At this point, I was feeling the contractions
Mhm.
again,
Mhm.
not horrible, but I think that's the point. I think they want you to feel it a little bit so you can push better. Um, so I tried to push past it, one push, and they like flooded the room with everybody. So it was effective. And just a few more pushes, and she was born at, I believe, 6:35. I was just totally in the moment of giving birth to her.
Yeah.
I was excited when they said they saw her head and there was hair, and I was like, yay, she has hair. uh, Tad was just kind of zoned out and just Tad, I think, was worried about how would she look,
Oh, okay.
um, because there's such a wide array of possibility,
Mhm.
and you never know how much like decomposition or if there was infection or what. He just didn't know, and he was so worried. But
Did he express that concern to you, or did anybody talk to you guys about that?
no, they actually didn't. So I didn't really know what to expect at all. My mind was on my body
Yeah.
and not, I wasn't necessarily like concerned about that. But we did talk about, they said, what do you want after she's born? What do you want to do? Like, usually they do skin to skin. And I just really couldn't handle the idea of them like taking her out and putting her on me when she wasn't alive. I think it would just, I didn't think I could emotionally handle that. So I said, when she's born, I want you to hold her up so that we can both see her. And then you can take her and
Yeah.
clean her up and then wrap her and give her to us to hold. And so that's what they did, like
Okay.
the Lion King. When she came out, they held her up like Simba.
And did she see her hair and
And she
everything?
was perfect. Um, there was nothing, I mean, like I said, they didn't talk to us about what the possibilities were, I don't think, not that I remember. Um, but she was absolutely perfect. She just looked like a newborn baby. I mean, her skin was a little bit discolored just because of the blood flow.
Mhm.
So she was just like more pale in some areas, like around her mouth a little bit. And then she had the dark red lips, which I guess a lot of stillborns
Mhm.
have, which is a blood flow thing,
Mhm.
to my understanding. But other than that, I mean, she was just perfect. Her hair was like kind of curly, and she had 10 fingers and 10 toes, and she just was a completely normal baby. She just, was stillborn. And we feel really blessed that, we got to have such a perfect daughter. I mean, she was like one of the cutest babies I've ever seen. And I'm like, okay, like clearly this isn't a little angel.
Yeah.
Um, they say about stillborn sometimes too beautiful for earth, and that was her. So Um, after, so they wrapped her up and they gave her to me, and I had Tad take a picture. I said, take a picture, and the face, on a mom holding her baby that's not alive, it's like you loved them so much, and there's so much joy. There's also so much pain, and that expression is so unique. And Tad captured that in this photo. Um, and of course, I passed her on to him, and we both got to hold her, and um, we just, couldn't get over how adorable she was, and loved her all the same. Like how people say when your baby's born, you can't help but fall in love. And it doesn't matter if your baby is born alive or not, you still fall in love. I don't even remember like how long it took before we invited, we parents that the baby was born and that they could come. So
And were they nearby or just hanging out in the hospital parking lot?
they were nearby.
Okay.
I actually don't know, since Tad's parents and his brother the parents live in Tulsa, and then his brother lives in Wichita. And so I don't know, that wasn't the town that we were in. So I didn't know where they hung out. Maybe, I think they hung out at our house,
Oh, good.
maybe. But yeah, everybody came back up and got to hold her and meet her. And that was really special, really, really special to us, to be able to share her
Yeah.
with them.
And you guys named her Hazel. How did you guys
Uh-huh.
choose how did you choose that name?
I say up and down that it was just, I was laying in bed one morning on Facebook, and it was an advertisement for one of those name puzzles, and the
Mhm.
name on the puzzle was Hazel. And I was like, that's a cute name. And Tad agreed, and so we named her Hazel. Tad thinks that's not how it happened, but
Oh.
I'm sticking to that story.
Okay, there you go. And is Ray a family name?
So Ray is actually his brother's middle name.
Oh.
We spelled it Rae,
Uh-huh.
but he spells it Ray.
That's awesome. It has nice rhythm. Hazel Ray. It's just really
Yeah,
cute. So your family, they were able to come up and visit you and meet Hazel.
yeah,
That is so special. Like I agree that was probably one of the most precious times to me when our family got to meet our son. So were they able to stay long? I know that they were let in, which is great especially during the pandemic. So that is great that they came up and were they able to stay long?
yeah. So she was born at about 6:35, and so they probably came about 7. We probably had visitors until maybe like 9 or 10. So they
Yeah,
stayed for several hours.
that's great. How was that time together? Did you guys do anything in particular during that time that you spent with
Um,
her?
One thing that I'm really glad that they did was, specifically my mom, and specifically Tad and I's sister-in-law, his brother's wife. They took pictures like, like you normally would with a newborn baby.
Yeah.
And Tad and I were so in the moment, like pictures weren't at the forefront of our mind, although I wish they were. Um, but yeah, they were taking pictures of her, and like in her little bassinet, and pictures of them holding her, and those ended up being really special um, afterwards. So the hospital um, actually hooked us up with Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep,
Mm-hmm.
and the photographer was like, she lived like, I don't know, 2 hours away, and
Oh,
it was late.
yeah.
And they were like, "Oh, you can come tomorrow," but she's like, "No, I want to come now because she's going to look the best now." And so the Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep photographer, Sammy is her name, she showed up at like 10 o'clock at night.
Oh, God, that's awesome.
Yeah. And she had like a 2 hour drive home. But so by the time she showed up, pretty much all of our visitors had left. And a parish priest was there and he was praying in another room. And so Tad went to go talk to him because we asked that he come up to say prayers with us and to do whatever's appropriate, close to like a baptism sort of thing.
Right.
Um, but I was in the room with the Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep photographer,
Mm-hmm.
and I was just amazed. I mean, I know she's done this several times, but the way that she held our daughter and the way she positioned her, I was like honestly really jealous because it's so hard when you have a stillborn, like holding them respectfully because they're so, they don't have the muscle tone.
Right.
And so you have to be like super, super careful. And I was just amazed at the way, she got her dressed into different outfits and how she swaddled her and just put her head in the perfect position. And
Oh,
I was just watching in awe. And I wish that I was taking pictures over her shoulder. um, the pictures that she took are absolutely beautiful. Unfortunately, all the Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep pictures are black and white.
oh,
Um, and so I wish that I was over her shoulder taking those colored pictures
yeah,
because now it's like I love having the black and white pictures. They're amazing, but doesn't make it feel as real as the colored pictures, which we have so few of.
yeah.
Um, and I'm so glad to have them, but I wish that there was so many more in color. I wish I had a million colored pictures and videos and
All of it.
just yes, because you can never have enough.
Yeah.
That's something that, you know, we had to tell ourselves the whole way. We still tell ourselves today, we did the best we could in the moment. We did all we knew what to do at that time.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So you had her pictures taken, which is so I love that service. That is so many people have benefited from those volunteers, and I think it is really, really cool. After she left, did you guys just spend time with her? Because I think, if I'm not mistaken, you guys have gone you're more than 24 hours without any sleep, I'm assuming, because you
Yeah.
didn't sleep super great the night before. Um, did you guys have her stay in the room with you, or tell me what you guys did after that?
So we took a lot of pictures with the Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep photographer. Like at first she just took pictures of Hazel and then she had Tad and I get some pictures with
Oh,
her.
good.
So that was good. Um, and then it was, I don't know if it was around midnight, um, sometime around there, or maybe even a little after the priest had come and prayed um, and he left. Then it was just us three. We like after we had held Hazel so much, like she was having like I don't know, like not decomposition really. I mean, we had the cuddle cot, which was cold,
Mhm.
and we were told that it was like important that she do stay, like that she not get too warm because we were going to do testing, and if she was too warm, then the tissue wouldn't be viable for the testing that they
Mhm.
were trying to do.
Mhm.
And so we were cautious of, although we wanted to cuddle her forever,
Yeah.
we also knew she needed to stay a little bit cold. So um, we sat there and we talked to her
in her bassinet, and like I said, sometime around midnight or a little bit after, we both, agreed, like, it's time for her to go, and it's time to say goodbye. And that's just a hard moment, like, when you say bye for the last time and in the same day that you said hello. That was probably the hardest moment of the whole process. Probably even harder than hearing that she wasn't alive. Was making the choice to say goodbye. But we knew we had to, and so we let the nurse wheel her out of the room. And then of course there was lots of tears. Didn't sleep very much more that night. And at this point, it was Wednesday morning, I think. It was Wednesday morning, and we knew that we had to make arrangements for a funeral. So we started making those, and Tad's grandma she used to work at a funeral home. So we kind of reached out to her and asked her to help us set some things up. So she did. And then Wednesday morning, we ended up getting discharged from the hospital, and funeral stuff started immediately. Planned to have the funeral on Friday, and this was already Wednesday. So we went and picked out flowers. We went to the funeral home to pick out a casket.
Was it just you and Tad at the funeral home, or did your grandma
Yeah.
come and help you?
It was just Tad and I. It sucks seeing the casket.
Yeah.
They shouldn't make them that small. But it was at the funeral home when the next insanely heartbreaking thing for me happened. The funeral director guy left to get us samples of something or a book or something like that, and Tad was sitting there and he started to get emotional, and I looked at him and like, what's wrong? I mean, obvious, other than the obvious. And he said, it's because before the funeral director left, he asked us, who's going to, are you going to have pallbearers? I mean, this is, like a tiny casket. Is it just going to be one person, and we didn't really know. So then he left to go get the samples, and that's when Tad got emotional, and I asked him what was wrong, and he said, I want to walk my little girl down the aisle. This is the only chance I'm gonna get. That was like one of the saddest things I've ever heard in my life. But I respected that a lot. And I said, you don't have to do that. You don't have to. And he said, no, I want to. I want to do it. So I said, okay. And when the funeral director came back in, he Tad told him, I'm gonna carry her. Just me. And the funeral director was kind of surprised. But obviously respected our wishes, so that was the plan. Um, After we made those arrangements there at the funeral home, and we, like I said, we went to some place and picked out some colorful flowers for her. Tad had mentioned on Wednesday, he's like, what are we gonna wear? And I just thought that was the most trivial thing. Like, why are you concerned about what we're gonna wear? There's so many other things to do and stuff to worry about. So I kind of just dismissed it, and I said, we'll find something, in the closet somewhere. And Thursday was another day that, we're still getting everything in order. And at the end of that day, he mentioned again, what are we going to wear? And I was like, I don't know, Tad. And he starts crying, and he's like, I want to look good for my little girl. So I felt really bad that I had dismissed his comment about clothes, and I said, we'll go to Kohl's tomorrow morning, and we'll pick you out like a brand new outfit, and you can wear whatever you want. And so I think it was the morning of the funeral, on Friday, we went to Kohl's, and he picked out a suit, and looked very, very nice. And he was so proud that he was going to look so nice for her. And he wore like a navy blue suit. And I wore kind of like a maroon dress. I told people, like, don't wear black. I don't think Hazel would want everybody at her funeral wearing black. Like, wear something colorful. So I think for the most part, people generally didn't wear black, which was nice. Yeah. On the day of her funeral, it was pretty darn windy. I put out like a message basically saying that anybody is welcome. We had it, she was going to be buried in the small town that Tad grew up in, and there is a church there, but it's really small. And because of COVID, we decided to have it in the town that we live in, so that anybody could come that wanted to, and everybody could be spread out.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a nice day to be in a mask as a grieving parent. cover your face. When we got to the church, and we decided not to have an open casket, like we decided not to have a viewing or anything, because we had seen Hazel when she was perfect.
Yeah.
And that's how we wanted to remember her. So we didn't have a viewing or anything like that. But when we got to the church, like, everybody's standing around in the back, like waiting for it to start. And so Tad and I kind of escaped to the little chapel off to the side. We just sat in there and held each other's hands, and there was a lady in there praying. There's usually always someone in there, in the little chapel. And she said, do you know whose funeral this is? I'd like to pray for them. And we said, it's our daughter's. And, she told us she was so sorry. And she actually, she had a prayer book, and she ripped a page out of it, which was, I think, the page for that day. And it was actually, I couldn't tell you what it says off the top of my head, but it was actually relevant, like, to our situation, which was so neat. But we eventually emerged from Little Chapel, and Tad went and picked up her casket, and we both did, but he carried her. and we walked her down the aisle, and that was really hard. I was crying so much I could barely see where I was walking. Um, she had there's quite a few people there, and the service was beautiful. She had beautiful flowers, and um, everything was, as perfect as we could have hoped it would be. Um, then,
Did your pastor speak, or did anybody else in their family speak?
yeah, we actually, we're Catholic, and so we had like a mass,
Oh,
and
okay.
so the priest um, definitely spoke, and we're actually really close with our parish priest. He's close to Tad's age, so we're kind of friends.
Yeah.
um, but he said some really, beautiful words for her and for us, and no matter what religious background people were from, um, at the service, they said that it was so beautiful, and um, nobody else like got up and said anything. Just the priest. Tad got to pick a special song that he's always said he wanted played at his funeral, and he had that played at her funeral,
Hmm.
and so that was very special to him. At the end of the service, he carried her back down. We both walked back down. And then one thing that we had decided that I had decided was I didn't want her to ride in the hearse because a little tiny
Yeah.
baby, and I didn't want her to be alone. So I got in the car and Tad put her on my lap. And so we drove her to the cemetery, which was like 30-40 minutes away from the church. And during that car ride, at first when he laid her on my lap, I just, cried over her. But once we got in the car and we started heading there, and we got out of town, we're driving kind of through the country out to this small town. He turned on Josh Garrel's new album, which is kind of like relaxing. And it was like we both felt really at peace during that car ride because we both realized Tad and I love to go on road trips, and we're realizing that we get to have a little family road trip. And so that was very special to us. And people thought probably that we were crazy when we showed up um, at the cemetery because we were happy. We had just had such a special moment together as a family, and so we weren't crying. We were actually maybe even wearing smiles. It was a really peaceful, special thing that we got to have on the drive there. And then at the cemetery, um, I think the priest came out and probably said some more words before they laid her down. But we did, it was a windy day in Kansas, of course. And so I had this idea that, they would bring out a ton of balloons and everybody would have their own balloon and release it, which the balloons, come in bunches, and it was windy. So it was very interesting trying to get the balloons separated.
Right.
But we did, and everybody got a balloon, and then we all got to release a balloon. And that was special. So after that, we gathered up and went back to our house and had, family surrounding us and friends so that we weren't alone for the next few days.
Yeah.
I think that maybe people left on Sunday, but kind of out of order, but I had a swaddle,
Uh-huh.
picked out for, I mean, thank goodness I'm like super OCD type A nurse personality, and I had packed my hospital bag already. So I had all of Hazel's little clothes and stuff in there,
Yeah.
and there was a swaddle that I had in there, and I didn't, when we were deciding what to bury Hazel in, I was like, I don't know, what do you want to bury her in? And Tad's like, I want to bury her in this, like when he was holding her, because it was like a really soft swaddle, and she had a little bow on her head,
Uh-huh.
and I was like, that makes sense, like she'll be all swaddled up, she'll feel, safe and snug and secure. So we buried her in her little swaddle with her little bow. So that was special.
Yeah. So it sounded like you guys were going to do an autopsy or at least do some testing. Did you guys find anything? Did they find anything conclusive about what happened?
Yeah, so they tested us for me and Hazel for everything
Mm-hmm.
under the sun, pretty much. The autopsy was perfect, and I would know because I read it.
Yeah.
Um, and there was nothing. Everything was perfectly normal. Her umbilical cord was a marginal insertion, so instead of being like on the side of the placenta where it normally is, it's like on the edge.
Okay.
Um, but the doctor said that that's they couldn't point to that as the reason
Mm-hmm.
because it's not something that they were concerned about. She also was born with a cord around her neck,
Oh,
um, but the doctor said it wasn't tight.
yeah.
Um, and I don't think she had any signs of like bruising or anything, and they
Mm-hmm.
didn't mention any of that. So they couldn't say that it was a cord accident.
Yeah.
Um, they didn't find anything on the placenta. The genetic testing did reveal that she had a small microdeletion,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like really super rare. And they said they couldn't even say that that was like that she should have just been born with that.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know if anybody's genetically perfect,
Yeah.
but so they said, who knows if she even would have expressed that gene. She could have been perfectly normal. So we did not get an answer at all. All of my testing came back normal. All of her stuff came back normal. There were some things that you could maybe speculate happened, but they couldn't say that there was anything for sure.
Is that more reassuring or less reassuring to you, I guess?
Um, I would definitely say it's well, it depends how you look at it. In the terms of future pregnancies, it was definitely less reassuring because I mean, whereas you could look at it like, oh, it was a freak accident, it shouldn't happen again. I'm sitting here thinking, what's preventing it from happening again? Like, what even is it?
Yeah.
I don't know what happened. And I almost wish there was an answer like, oh, you have a clotting disorder, and now here's medication that you can take, and this should never happen again.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like that. I don't have anything to do to prevent whatever happened because I have no idea what happened.
Yeah. Feels out of your control, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah. Taylor, thank you so much for sharing Hazel with us. That was really so tender and I want to say sacred, but I was like it was just a really nice a sweet story of her. Do you want to tell us anything your any last things before we close today?
I'm sure there's a million things that I could say. I just think that we're so blessed to have had her. I think about that a lot. There's a lot of people that have lost, like we did with our earlier miscarriages, and you don't get to hold those babies. That's hard. You don't get to see them and, you know, know if they're a boy or a girl sometimes even. So I think we were very blessed to have Hazel as long as we were, because we got to hold her and name her, and I got to feel her kicks, and Dad got to feel her kicks, and that's all of that is a blessing, no matter how things turned out. We're very blessed to have the time that we had with her.
Thank you so much, Taylor. That was perfect.
It's crazy how even after so long, it's so fresh.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you again.